Welcome to the Get Real with King Arthur show. What a wonderful week this is, Thanksgiving week, when families gather and say thanks together. Fabulous. Last year, we talked about the importance of Thanksgiving, of being thankful. And remind you of one thing the psychiatrist said. He said that he had never seen a mentally disturbed person who was really thankful. So the idea is to keep us sanity, be thankful. So today I want to take a different angle and talk about barriers to real being thankful. Sometimes our lips say one thing and our heart says another. I'm as guilty as others. There are two barriers to really being thankful with the heart. I'll talk about one in terms of a little blessing. It goes like this. Lord, when often in a public place, I then neglect to say the grace. And then it's said with a boring by rote, not with a very Thanksgiving note. When food and drink around abound, not much thankfulness is to be found. Remind me when my hunger was at its worst, or when I agonized with thirst. I've never, thank God, gone to bed hungry that I know of. But I want to tell you about one time when I agonized with thirst. It was a hot October afternoon, and I was in basic training at Fort Dix. And for some reason, after the hot, sweaty field training we were undergoing, there was no water. They didn't say why there was no water. They didn't say when it was going to come or if it was going to come. And I came close to drinking dishwater. I was so desperate. I agonized with thirst. Have you ever agonized with thirst? And so we take for granted abundance. And we just assume, we presume, we assume, we don't think that we should be thankful for it. We just take it for granted that the grocery store has got all the things we want, and we don't have to worry, and we don't even have to be thankful. I'm guilty of that some. I want to work on it and really be thankful when I sit down and say, look, here's wonderful food. A great variety of marvelous food. Oh, I want to be thankful with the heart. The next barrier to Thanksgiving is, on the other scale, people who are unhappy with their situation. There's an old gospel song which goes, along with, God never promised a rosy strewn way. But what God has promised, we'll talk about that later. We never promised you a rose garden, nor did God. So I want to deal with that in terms of the book of Proverbs. Job, the oldest book in the scriptures. It's a story in dramatic form with author unknown. And it deals with those who are suffering unhappiness. What sense do we make out of it? How can we be thankful? And it deals with about the worst situation. For example, this guy named Job loses all his income, all his cattle and rant, whatever. All his family dies except his wife. No great blessing she was. And he loses his health. He's covered with boils from head to foot, sitting on an ash heap. Well, can he be thankful? Now, over the year, I haven't dealt with the book of Job for 50 years. I haven't thought of it. But sometimes good literature sort of seeps upward. New situations, new other works of literature, new thoughts. And so I want to present to you what the book of Job would say to those who want to be thankful, but those who've had a very disappointing year, maybe a frustrating year. And when they sit down at the table with the turkey and they know, thank you, God, they don't feel very thankful. Or worse, some who are going through great sorrow, grief, mental problems, sickness. 40% of Americans at some time or other will be diagnosed with cancer. Over 13% will have severe mental, emotional problems. So they're kind of like maybe even worse than Job, sitting on an ash heap. Now, Job gets lots of advice. And the advice that he gives, the three counselors tell him, the reason that you suffer like this is you've been naughty. God is punishing you. For you better admit it, Job. You've been naughty and you deserve it. You're getting punished for this. Or sometimes it doesn't have to be Job's counselors. Sometimes we are our own worst critic. I talked to a pastor once, and he had a parishioner who had a child out of wedlock before she got married. And later on, that child died, and she was convinced that God was punishing her and was angry with her. And the pastor said, nonsense. No, he loves you. He's not punishing you for this. And she found great release and relief and lived a radiant life after that. So people will say, and they still do it today. I knew a man that got cancer, and they said, well, what did he do wrong? Well, really? They asked Jesus about a blind man. They said, did he sin or his ancestors? And Jesus said, neither. So sometimes, not only do other critics try to blame you for your troubles, but sometimes we blame ourselves. In classical literature, they talk about the Furies. You ever have the Furies? You try to sleep, and you get could've, would've, should've, could've, would've, should've, could've, would've, should've, and they're accusing you and accusing you and accusing you. Well, what does the book of Job have to say about it? Well, first, those counsel, his wife said, curse God and die, for goodness sake. I mean, God that would let this happen to you, give up, for goodness sake. He's a bad God, or fate is bad. And then these counselors, wise guys, were wrong. According to the book of Job. They were wrong, because God appears on the stage. It's seen like a deus ex machina in classical literature, of God from the machine. And they are wrong. It isn't because you've done something bad that you're having difficulties, or they're experiencing grief, or that you're facing health or psychiatric problems. Listen, I've had a little peek at some psychiatric problems, and I shudder. I've never been there. I don't want to go. What about the 40% who get diagnosed with cancer? What about the over 13% that are having emotional problems? They're going into depths I never want to go into, thank God. Well, Deus ex machina, God appears on the scene. Now, I don't know in the drama, if you'd seen Job presented as a drama, I don't know whether God would come and, I don't know, walk on the stage or with a big machine or something or whatever, how that would be pictured. But God speaks. Now, the conventional answer to all this trouble is that God restores the family, he doubles the ownings of Job, he cures him of his illness. Wait, no. How does Job know that that happens? It won't be taken away from him again. What is the answer? It's the moment where God speaks to Job. The eternal God of the universe speaks. And now, what do you think God says? God does not say, I'm going to restore all this great stuff to you. No, he doesn't say that. In fact, he says, I'm not giving you the answer. Wow. No. Were you there when I created the world? Were you there? You can't accept the answer. I'm not going to give it. Now, the 18th century poet, Alexander Pope, deals in Essay on Man, deals with the same subject. He said, God, gracious God, gives us many things in our life. Well, that's easy, yeah. And there are evil people and evil things that happen. I mean, people get in jail because they murdered somebody or something. But he said there's an intermediate period where we have some maybe temporary suggestions about why troubles come. But they're not final. For example, look at this hymn, which suggests something. It says, when fiery trials I cause thee to go, the rivers of sorrow will not overflow. The flames shall not hurt thee, I only design thy dross to consume and thy gold to refine. Well, maybe trouble helps our character and refines it and is used for correction. It could be used that way. Not that I don't say God, I only design, I think God permits it. That's my own theory. So Alexander Pope says, why does man not have a microscopic eye? Well, he doesn't need it. He's not a fly. Why does man not have the strength of bulls, the fur of bears? He doesn't need it. He's got his mind, which is better than all of this. This is some temporary reasons why sorrow and evil could possibly occur to us. But the main thing is that the God of the universe speaks to us. Oh, wonder of wonders. Now, let me give you a little illustration from my life. When my sister, Luann, and I were at a camp working, and she had a 2-year-old son, Robert. Now, she had to work at the camp and try to babysit her 2-year-old boy, and she left him in a sand pit with toys and everything for a little while. What did the boy do? Robert left the sandbox and went to a big slide where he climbed it, so he said, and the big older boy pushed him off. He came screaming to my sister. His face is mashed and bloody and whatnot. And so I had to get my old Mercury and a couple other counselors. And Luann, my sister, a wonderful mother, took Robert into her lap. Did she explain to him why it was his fault? Did she tell him why we were racing 8 miles to Ithaca? Did she explain what the doctor was going to do? No. She just threw her arms around Robert and comforted him and loved him, and he knew it. By the way, we talked to Robert. He does not remember a thing about that crisis. When we got, as I was driving the car, I felt faster. I don't know whether they were yelling it at me, but we had to drive through Ithaca and the stoplights and pray, oh, let us have a green light. So when we got to the hospital, my sister had it right. She wanted to carry the boy, screaming boy, into the emergency room and present him to the doctor and assure the boy that the doctor was going to do good things for him. They wouldn't let her. So we sat in the car and heard screaming from the hospital. My poor sister. Well, you know something? Robert is a good and successful man. He is a fine appearing man. There's not a single scar on his face, and he doesn't remember at all. So the analogy is that the eternal God of the universe deigns to talk with you. And there is some reason to believe, and the book of Job doesn't go into this enough, but it does some. Job says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That means that we have the eternal God of the universe who talks, and according to Job, what he says, you can trust him. That may not answer everything, but I hope that I hope you're like me, that you better be working on Thanksgiving because you have so many good things, but you might be in that other category. And depths I know nothing about. And the book of Job says that you can be like Robert on the laps of his mother. Wonderful, oh, Luann, what a wonderful mother, a beautiful girl, well, she is. And Robert rested, comforted, not explained. He doesn't know all the answers. Couldn't understand it if he did. Well, that's what the book of Job says about being thankful. The other part is a little blessing that I have, that we take for granted the good things in our life. And I hope that I will really connect my heart with my lips this Thanksgiving Day and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving.